Today is Juneteenth. It marks the beginning of freedom for African Americans. On this day in 1865, enslaved blacks in Galveston, Texas were notified the Civil War was over and they were free. Earlier this month, Governor Joe Lombardo signed Assembly Bill 140 that makes Juneteenth a state holiday. Back in 2021, President Biden made it a national holiday. So state, county, and city offices are closed today.
Up until Juneteenth, it was an unimaginable road to freedom for slaves in this country.
Well, Candace Charles is live this morning from Henderson with more on the history behind today. Candace, good morning to you.
Good morning, good morning, folks. Yes, let's take a little bit of a time back in history. It's June 19, 1865 in Galveston, Texas. You've heard for weeks whispers that the Union Army is coming. Finally, General Gordon Granger releases Order 3. Emancipation Proclamation promises are realized. The Confederate Army surrenders. But what happens next? Well, historians say under the law, the order said former slaves and slave owners were then equal. But one of the biggest pieces of information that some historians argue is commonly left out of Juneteenth's commemorations is that slaves were encouraged to stay on their plantations. It's suggested that the Union did this to maintain order, but it didn't stop celebrations. And that's what you see today. The degree to which the modern Juneteenth mirrors the original one is unclear, but one thing is certain. It's a time to remember the sacrifices of those who came before us, joining in celebrating the last black slaves in the U.S., realizing that they were free, and the reminder to continue to march toward freedom.
For a lot of people, Juneteenth is attached to July 4th as a fulfillment of the promises that were made on July 4th that were not extended to everybody. And what that then requires people to do is reflect on, well, what are the current injustices we're facing?
Now, public awareness of Juneteenth grew in 2020 amid nationwide protests after the police killings of several black Americans, including George Floyd and Breonna Taylor. Now, the following June, President Biden signed legislation that made it a federal holiday, and on June 8th, Governor Lombardo also signed it into a state holiday. Now, today you'll see a lot of celebrations, including right here at Water Street Plaza at 5:30 p.m. That's when it'll all get started here. We got more details on our website, 8newsnow.com. For now, live from Water Street Plaza, off in Henderson, I'm Candace Charles, 8 News Now.
An important day, no doubt. So glad that there's so many events happening around the valley, but great to hear the history behind it, too.
Thanks, Candace.
Thank you. And well, so as I mentioned, in addition to that event that Candace was talking about, there are other things happening across the valley. There's a Faith Freedom Festival planned at Craig Ranch Park. Begins at 5:30. And we've got a list of other events at 8newsnow.com.